At our camp, we do a poop tally, which I always win or lose depending on your perspective, I guess, of what winning or losing means.
That's amazing. The only poop tally I know of is from Alive.
Like you're making hash marks on a whitebboard every time you
Oh yeah.
do a number
Not
two?
a whiteboard even. It's not that classy. It's just a piece of cardboard usually ripped off of some box. But it's been like
Nice.
4 years running now. Yeah, whiteboard is way too classy for that situation.
All right, so Benjamin, please tell us about your camp and your poops.
Yeah, actually, I should have some sort of like catalog over time of it, but sadly, it's cataloged in a physical storage unit, so I can't tell you like our statistics over time without being there.
Your poop can be liminal. It's okay. We don't need like the
Okay, yeah, it's ephemeral
details.
experience.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
If you're going back to Playa this year, you can find those hard copies of your records.
I definitely will in the storage unit.
We'll send them to some mechanical Turks at Amazon, and they'll give us a data set, and we can really start looking into this.
No. You're thinking too small. We turn each poop into its own unique NFT, like fractionalize the whole thing. Yeah,
In VR.
This is how I fund this year's project or next year's project.
Oh my God!
I've
Just
thought of a lot of ways, but I haven't gone that far yet.
being able to look at each individual turd rendered in 3D in VR.
Yeah.
We need to
Yeah,
buy a really expensive
yeah.
camera, guys. That's the point.
How are your fluid dynamics rendered? It's Burning Man.
Unreal 5. That's what we're all going to be using.
Benjamin,
At least,
you're
yeah.
calling in from Germany, and I hear they've got like those shelf toilets there that hold your poop until you flush,
Oh,
so you
yeah.
can take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all we
Yeah,
really need to
definitely.
do.
I have a whole theory about that.
So do I.
Guys,
Oh,
it's
man.
so
We are
early
not
in the
talking
morning.
about
Let's
Burning
hear
Man.
it.
Shut
Let's
up,
hear
Beth.
it.
It's so early in the morning.
Look, I think there are some cultures, and I'm not going to name drop the Germans and the Japanese, but I just did.
The two places I've lived.
Yeah.
Outside of the States.
I
not
said, yeah,
all
like,
of the Axis powers, but some, many, several.
I'm just saying that there are some cultures with predilections toward engineering and medicine and like really figuring out what's going on. And in those cultures,
Yeah.
you just happen to have that human experience that you have at least once every 2 days can also be inspected and cataloged and researched with some certainty, you know? You don't want to be there in the toilet with chopsticks, like picking apart your poops. You want it on a platter for you to view.
All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and when I come back, can we be talking about Burning Man?
How long is that going to take exactly so we know
Hey,
sort of how to wrap this up?
I'm
Yeah.
drinking coffee, so not very long.
Okay, not long.
Welcome to Accuracy Third.
I'm D-Day.
I'm Beth.
I'm Rex, and I'm a little surprised.
Oh, yeah.
It's not usually Beth who calls us to order. Also joining us today, just a little fourth mic, is our friend Zeno.
I don't know anything about the things we are about to introduce. I will just be muttering away from the mic. You might hear it, you might not.
Zeno, like, I don't know if I know this specifically from you. What is the most dangerous piece of art you've seen out there? Where is the most harm been caused by art in all your years?
By art, or the art was incidental and maybe used improperly?
Yeah. If
to
the
you, your
art,
call.
yeah.
Okay, there's the metal board that took people's fingers off. But
Well,
like,
there's Dance Immolation, which really should have hurt someone.
Did
yeah,
But
I don't
it
think it
didn't.
did, though.
It didn't.
no?
Yeah.
They had lots of Teflon suit, Kevlar.
Yes.
No, Teflon.
Asbestos suits. That's the poisonous substance.
I had a friend actually climb to the top of the Belgian waffle, and he should have been hurt.
Ooh, yeah,
but
we're
he-
not opposed to climb.
He
that.
and he was a flip side guy, and it was his one time that he ever went to Burning Man. And he's like, "I'm gonna climb that thing," and everyone was like, "You can't do that." He's like, "But I'm doing
Yeah.
it, so evidently I can."
It was fine. Like, it wasn't like it was lath that was nailed together or however they affixed those.
Those were finishing nails.
That's fine. Whole bunch of them that'll hold you up.
Sure.
I mean,
He didn't die, and he didn't destroy it. But the
even
Rangers,
if it had like
pissed.
fallen apart under him, he'd only fallen a few inches before the next like chunk of nasty slapped together wood caught him. It was like a net.
This is a story about no one getting hurt by art. It's just risky art that no one got hurt by.
Shockingly,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of like climbing up Belgian waffle. Not kidding.
Well, yeah, there's things that you feel like you're automatically gonna get hurt if you do this dangerous thing, but then when you do it, you cross this weird Rubicon where you find out that actually it's not as dangerous. If you die 1 in 6 times and you do it once, you're like, whoa, I'm invincible.
If
this
you
is
die
awesome.
right, you can honestly say you didn't get hurt.
So in this episode, we're talking to the artist who created Stone 27.
And Shibari Sanctuary.
Yeah. And
Benjamin from Germany.
Well, he is calling from Germany.
yeah,
But
he's from Berlin.
from here.
Yeah. Dear listeners, people we're actually talking to, not just the people in this room. Hey, friends. We're going to hear from a person who learned and figured out art in that way that real artists do, which is like kind of a survival mechanism. Enjoy hearing this human being figuring out how to be themselves while also figuring out how to make large-scale, very dangerous art for everyone to enjoy.
It's almost like radical self-expression is transformative.
If it looks like you can climb it, you probably should climb it.
Climb that shit.
I am standing by that from this point forward.
It's
you
like the
two
principles
look at
are
me and ask
actually
me if
good.
it's safe before you climb shit because your judgment ain't great.
I haven't fallen off nothing. The only time I've hurt myself at Burning Man, it was on Twister.
I just watched you have a panic attack about other people climbing shit.
Yeah.
Like totally from the complete ground.
A thing which nobody ever hurt themselves on.
Right. Thank you. This is Benjamin.
I'm just going to ask you some like really bog standard questions. How long have you been going?
Since 2015. My brother committed suicide a few years before that, and that completely like changed my whole world and how I valued to exist in it. Right, like if I was to like sort of graph my emotional range, my emotional experience before that, it was like this like little like bumpy line with like like very minor movements in it, and then experiencing something like that negative, I felt really woke me up to the availability in the positive areas, or just the availability in like the spectrum of emotion that I had been suppressing, like a good American male in his 20s. And yeah, I just needed to experience more of the world. So I quit. This was when I was living in San Francisco. I was one of those evil tech workers. I went to school there for 4 years or 5 years. So I did live there for a while. And then I started commuting out of the city every day and quit my job and started traveling around the world. Part of that process was eventually going to Burning Man with one of my coworkers who took me there and changed the whole situation. We went just like the three of us with this like little dome for the first time. And it was this like really confusing and overwhelming experience, as is not unique to people's first try at Burning Man.
It was first time for all three of you?
No, for me. They were quite seasoned. I don't know, maybe they were less seasoned than I thought, but I consider them still very seasoned, as the elders who brought me there or whatever.
Right.
And it gave me like an intense 6 months of like sort of untangling the situation in my brain. But the thing I knew for sure leaving was that I definitely wanted to come back. And I had felt like when I left, I felt I had failed. Like I wasn't good enough for Burning Man, essentially. It was like this weird taste in my mouth I left with.
Oh, I totally get that. I felt that for like the first 3 or 4 years that I went.
Dude, I went to Burning Man and I'm like, yes, this is the first time I've ever been cool. Great.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I did not feel like a failure. I'm like, holy shit, I'm cool. This is great.
Yeah, Burning Man rivaled my introduction to San Francisco, in which like several hours or a couple days into it, I was just like, oh, I am more comfortable than I've ever been.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like I'm fucking with everyone. Everyone's fucking with me. Like I'm doing a goofy thing. People love it.
Or tolerate it.
I mean, I definitely found I discovered that I like to dance, which I didn't know that at all before that.
I found that out at Burning Man too. I was like, oh, dancing's great.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I have a body, and if I move it, it feels good, and no one's like staring and laughing at me. I can just have fun. It's like a good time. But yeah, I also found areas in which I was like, everyone gets this more than I do. Like I was dead convinced after allegedly perhaps consuming for the first time some substance.
We don't have extradition. So you can tell us what it is.
I tried Molly for the first time, and I actually blacked out. I have no idea why. No one can explain it to this day. But yeah, it was, at first really great, and then turned real bad. And I only have like real like snippets of information of what happened the rest of that night. But I remember being convinced at one point, like completely convinced, that this Burning Man thing happens year round, and that they won't let us leave. Like that thought was like 100% in my mind. I was like, it was just like inconceivable to me that amount of like chaos and creativity could just be like an ephemeral moment,
When I was like 3 or 4 years old and went to a movie theater for the first time and they closed the doors like after the previews played, I also thought they weren't going to let us leave, but they did.
Wow, D-Day.
Would they just keep playing more movies, or what?
I didn't know. I think it was The Jungle Book. It was either The Jungle Book or The Dark Crystal. In either case, I was fucking terrified, on top of the fact that like those movies are terrifying.
Way to reduce our guest down to toddler state. Thank you.
Look, man, he was inebriated. That happens.
Yeah, definitely felt that way, as well as a bunch of other stuff.
What? So,
yeah,
just out of curiosity, because I think this might be a very common thing for people who go out there. What were the other ways where you felt like you had failed at it?
Oh man, yeah. Well, I guess my drug background is very minimal. Also, to be clear on this situation, and then now I actually don't do any drugs. I don't drink caffeine, no smoking, no drinking, anything like that. I don't, actually, at the moment, don't even do sugar, salt, or oil. So I'm like
just a rope and stone guy.
Just eating rocks, licking the rocks for the nutrients that exist on them. But but at that point, like when I first went to Burning Man, I was like somehow like kind of fascinated with the idea of getting into some psychedelics and things. And this was just our like first, like my the friends I went with, they're like, all right, great, we'll start off with a little Molly and then we'll work our way up, And we didn't, I was told very clearly by my Molly experience that it was not time to work my way up, which I'm glad I listened to. I felt like overwhelming desires, which I didn't feel comfortable enough in my body to satisfy. That's probably a good way to put it. Like whether that was to like be the cool guy who like goes up on the air pusher and like can just hang out there, or like like exploring my sexuality in that context.
That totally makes sense as a way that you can feel, especially if you're seeing a lot of people around you that you're like, oh, no one else seems to be struggling with this.
Totally.
I definitely felt for my first few years looking at everything everybody was doing out there that I just didn't have anywhere near the capacity of these brilliant artists and creators and organizers. And I was also in my early 20s and very alienated and not good at things yet. So it was a not a completely inaccurate feeling, if not necessarily productive.
Yeah, no, and I would agree. It was totally a productive feeling as I went through the turmoil of sort of unraveling it over the next months. Like I literally had like visualization of like some cool art car just like getting farther and further away from me, and I just can't catch it because I'm not cool enough. They won't slow down, like bullshit like this, like in the months afterwards, and proceeded to like keep traveling around the world and like getting deeper and deeper into this like extreme self-love exercises. I guess I just got like deeper and deeper into self-love to the point where I knew I had to go back. I had failed. I have to figure this out. And so I decided I would the next year I was like, I want to join like the biggest artwork I can find. And I just went on like the honorarium page, still not obviously not knowing what that was because I still didn't know anything about Burning Man at that point. And like contacted the Catacomb of Veils people and ended up working on that on Playa.
Oh, wow. What a crucible for a first art project to look into.
Yeah, right. And I ended up like, I worked harder on that than I had ever worked physically on anything in my life up to that point. Like I just joined them on Playa. I was there like one of the, on like the second round, like after the survey was done. And, like I had no idea what we were going to do really. I'd met them one day in San Francisco beforehand, just like went to where they were working out there. And had no idea what I was getting into. And then just like, I was there till the very end. Like I was helping, I was the only one who could stand on the edge of the scissor lift and use the nail gun to get those panels that were, that they never finished with all that cladding on there. So I was like up there, I stayed until Wednesday working on it and then came back on Friday and helped them fill it with firewood. because I thought that's just like what you had to do. Like no one else showed up. It was like 5 of us compared to the 60-person crew. But I was like, well, this is just what you would do, right?
Well, then you were right.
And
that is what you had to do.
yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, still now, but other people had other thoughts. Probably would have never worked on an artwork again if not for the like cathartic release that came with the burn, like the moment of burning it. I had like this incredibly what I called at the time like a brain orgasm, and this was I was sober that year, and since then. But I had this like overwhelming brain orgasm feeling as it like caught on fire, and then danced the next 12 hours and had a great burn from Friday to the end.
Was your experience with that would have otherwise kept you away from art? Did that have to do with the fact that the project didn't complete? Was that frustrating?
Oh, no, it was more just like I was just like completely unclear why I had just put so much energy into something, which left me like so drained to the point where I couldn't you could barely like finish this massive project, and then like could barely like walk around, let alone go dance and have fun with people. I was like, oh, I just ruined my burn by like putting all this. What did I do that for? Like I paid money to come out here to like just put in a bunch of effort. Like that doesn't make any sense. And I don't even know these people. They're not like my like crew. Like I like them, they're great, but I don't, they're not my like lifelong friends or anything. Yeah, but after the experience with that burn, I knew I would come back and bring an artwork eventually, which I ended up doing actually the next year.
What did you bring the next year?
I did my first honorarium project, which and this was the reason I reached out to you guys, because I found it so funny. Like my friend Mustang, who's an ass guy, one of the art support services guys, sent it to me. And that you guys mentioned in this previous episode, Shibari Sanctuary, which was my honorarium in 2017, and Stone 27, like back to back, as like I think you were talking about it in terms of like scary things to climb on was sort of the topic. But I thought that was hilarious that those came up, and I was pretty sure I'm pretty sure you guys didn't know that I was the artist of both of those, right?
No,
There wasn't any connection there.
And like both of those are well in my like top 7 or 8 most effective pieces of art.
Oh, you shouldn't say that. That's too sweet. That's really nice.
Oh, I'm not sweet, so you can you can take that as like a genuine art opinion.
Oh, that's super nice
on what you've done. Like I think both of them were incredible, and the fact that I was yelled at for climbing on Shibari Sanctuary, which I am so gratified that you said that it was created to be climbed.
Oh, yeah,
because
totally.
those motherfuckers were certain that it wasn't.
Well, I'm pretty sure. So I could imagine that moment. Maybe, like I may have even known who yelled. I wish you could, like, if you could remember the fit, how they look like. I could maybe tell you who it was.
All I remember is somebody said, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, "Who are you saying? What are you doing? Like, what is going on? That is, what are you doing?"
My recollection is that it was a
scene was going on. Someone was being suspended.
I thought somebody was. What are you doing about the scene?
My whole impression. Sorry to also give you a bunch of different views on your artwork. My whole impression,
as many as possible,
of that moment. We were all altered. It was just like, oh, right, this is why I don't kink anymore. Like, these people did not have any fun at all. But
too serious.
Yeah, too serious. But the piece was lovely. And
the reason it made me so happy is I don't know, I thought nobody even remembered that at all. So to like even hear its name made me so happy. And because I've seen I don't know, Stone 27 was like, it had like some fallout afterwards, right? Like I've heard from a lot of people that it was exciting for them and seen nice photos. But yeah, Shibari Sanctuary was funny because I brought my teacher from Japan and like a crew of 10 mostly Japanese people, and I don't speak fluent Japanese and they don't speak English, and it was just this like really fun funny circumstance. And they basically got off of the plane from Japan and in Reno and came directly to Burning Man, and most of them hadn't been to the States before either. Yeah, and this was like to them, and we really lo-fi plug and played them. I'd say like we said like, here is a tent, you can set it up, but like we've set up like, here are bicycles you have to ride, because it was just, we had to manage it somehow. And so it was like really intense experience, especially for this one guy who came and helped us for the month beforehand. At one point he was so like dehydrated and out and just like destroyed, and also this like pressure of Japanese culture meshing with how Burning Man could work, that he came to me and handed me all his camera batteries, got on his bicycle, and said he was going back to Japan. And this was like during the build, and he just like rode off into the distance. And he eventually came back. But but yeah, like he had a pretty intense, overwhelming meltdown.
When he came back, had he found catharsis?
I think so. We I don't know. Like it was really strange to have this Japanese culture mesh, because there's this like hierarchy and the boss and thinking for other people situation, which I understood enough to respect at the time as well. So when my teacher was sort of there, everything kind of had to revolve around that. And we eventually like got back on good terms, and he had a really great time, but our like burns were pretty separate from there, because I think he felt a lot of shame for having sort of been overwhelmed. And he said, he eventually told me in his like broken like Japanese English, like he was like, he apologized to me like when I was in Japan next time. He says, I was lost, like that's how he could summarize it. So but I was really happy to resolve that with him.
That's beautiful.
I think
strange.
Anybody can get lost at Burning Man.
Oh, totally.
Any given burn day, it's so alien out there, even for Americans.
I don't think he was the first guy taking off on his bike to Japan.
for sure. If anyone could make it, I would believe it was him too. So like, I could see him doing it. And and this was, to be fair, like it was like Shibari Sanctuary was like such a leap of imagination. Like I had no business working on a project that large, or running it or organizing it. And that was like, that's really like the most beautiful thing about Burning Man to me, is that they like gave me that opportunity to like take a leap in imagination of what was possible for me to do. And that led to Stone 27 and what I'm doing basically now since then. Yeah, you were definitely supposed to climb on it. That was the whole point. Like that for me, that was like entirely the purpose of Shibari Sanctuary, except when we were having the performances, which we stupidly did every night while it was in existence. And in those cases, there was usually time where like if there was something happening inside, it would just cause a huge shower of dust everywhere and like someone moving about up there. And so that I have to think that was like, unless it was just some annoying burner who was just
it's not my job to set up your perimeter.
Exactly. I mean, now I would know totally different.
The thing that was so enticing to me was the way that Shibari Sanctuary curved up from the playa. Like the guys or the spokes, or however you would describe that, like they rose in such a way that I was like able to stride up onto it, which was very, very pleasing.
Cool.
In precisely the opposite way that you approached Stone 27.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I went up a step, maybe a step and a half.
And that's the thing. I never talk about Shibari. I never talked about it. Never have. No one ever. I never knew anyone was interested. So I can brush off some cobwebs. But it was, I think, 11 miles of red jute that was inspired by Kimbaku or Shibari or traditional Japanese ronbodges, and specifically my teacher developed this technique that he called like web Shibari. And it was a way to create forms out of the rope instead of only tying people. And so the concept was to make this like mountainous mountain essentially that you could climb to sort of bring in that. The whole thing was based around this natural high, this idea of a natural high. So one of the possibilities was to climb this mountain, which is in the mountains was a place I found a lot of availability of this idea of a natural high, as well as you could go inside it. And then there was this like sort of enclosed sort of felt safe. In no way was it protected from the outside. It was like it's just ropes like creating this weird mesh all around you. But we would host performances both inside and outside every night and sort of try to bring that feeling of being tied to people, this sort of natural high that comes to that to people, regardless of whether or not they're being tied, but just being in the space itself. Which, to be honest, now I think I've evolved a little bit more. When I first started creating art, I was really interested in I was focused on rope bondage, and I was like, how do I create a space that is physical that gives people that same like natural high or that moment of intensity that comes from being tied? And so I was like, literally, like, okay, I just tie the space and see, and then bring them in there and make nice lights and maybe do a performance like that could help. And now. Maybe I've got a little more nuanced approach, and Stone 27 is a path. I call it a pathway of floating stones. And now my aim with the works that I create is less about like targeting this idea of this natural high or this literal feeling that comes from rope bondage, that's for sure, but rather like taking a feeling I've experienced. And I don't mean that as like happy or sad, but like something I felt in my body, whether it's emotional or like this culmination of like physical stimulus, and physicalizing that in a way that people can come to that place. And the higher resolution, the like higher fidelity I can convey that to people with, the more successful I think the artwork is. Weird stuff. But yeah, anyways, I came to Berlin. I was living in Tokyo for 2 years studying rope bondage, like kimbaku or a shibari, with a master there as his apprentice. And then it was time to leave Japan because I realized that Japanese culture really wasn't my shtick. As I learned more and more Japanese, figured out more and more what was actually going on, I was like, I got to get out of here. And Berlin seemed like the next best place to continue those pursuits, which at the time, that was what I was thinking I was going to do, is like teach the rope bondage, tie people up, host strange esoteric moments around that sort of situation. And promptly got distracted when I got here about a half a year later with the rocks, which are much more fun to tie up because they feel way more than humans do.
Is that a particularly German phenomenon, real sensitive stones?
Real sensitive stones? No, I find them worldwide. I actually have very few German, like pure German stones. Actually, probably none, except for the ones I take from the cobblestone streets here. I take those ones out as well. Use those every once in a while.
So A, how do you use the stones? And B, what minerals are they? Do you know what rocks, what boulders you are trussing up?
That's something I probably should feel guilty about, that I don't put a lot of care or time or attention into. Really, my only concern is that I get them as like close as possible to where they're going to be used. So like for Burning Man, for Stone 27, I actually went out to the Black Rock in Black Rock Desert, you know, where the hot springs is, like a few months before burn. And I like scoped out like, oh man, like we could pull like a crazy operation to like retrieve Black Rock. So it's like really Black Rock coming out of the ground. But in the end, that felt like it would be ruining the beautiful environment there, and also stealing and probably illegal. So I ended up working with a nearby quarry instead, which was definitely the right call to get like a similar basalt style stone, but from as close as logistically feasible without stealing from nature.
If you're taking it from the playa and just moving it a couple miles down the playa, I think we're going to have a pretty hard time prosecuting you, honestly.
Oh yeah. I don't know who would miss them, but like they also sit there for like millions of years, right? And then if you move them, something about that, it's like, you know, it's different. It's different if you're like someone's carving them out of the side of a hill to like make concrete, and this is like their garbage, which is essentially where I usually get them. But you know, these like beautiful like ones sitting on the face of the earth, I always feel a bit guilty to touch those.
Wow, you really don't value those quarry rocks very much. They've also been there for millions of years.
Yeah. They have, but they've been like shoved in between all sorts of other particles and never seen the light of day until very recently, you know, and they've just been moved, you know, so it's like, all right, now they can just like go and live an even more better life.
This is pointing out that difference between Japanese and American culture. Like those quarry rocks, they're part of the collective rock. They want to contribute to their purpose to the collective. Those desert rocks, those are individuals. They deserve their freedom and autonomy.
Those are libertarian stones.
Exactly why I had to leave Japan. Summarized in a stone analogy.
And 27 Stones is just I love that piece so much. It's I watched the time lapse of you guys putting it together, and I was like, "Yep, that does look very hard to put together." Like, how many days did it take to before you were letting people up on it?
On Stone 27?
Yeah.
I think it took a lifetime to get to that point. That's what the artist is supposed to say so they can make money, you know? Otherwise, you're like, if you divide that by 24, that's that many hours. Okay, that's your paycheck. No, it took us on Playa. I think it took us 5 days before it was like basically fully walkable. But it took a while outside of there. And so Stone 27 is a pathway of floating stones. You can walk up it, and sort of the stones are not like you find them in reality, where they're like firm and stable on the ground, but instead they're sort of like wobbling and moving a little bit or a lot as they're suspended from the cables. And you sort of have this safety because you can hold onto the cables up until you get to the top. I would hope you're so focused on this step these last steps up to the top that are really like, you really have to consider the consequences of your actions at that point, I think, and the responsibility that you're taking with each step. That I think it maybe brings people to a moment of this, like moment of presence or a moment of like intensified consciousness as they zoom in closer and closer in that moment.
I was very intense on behalf of everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Me too.
I will say that your intention was 100% effective for me.
Oh,
I love climbing things at Burning Man, and I was thrilled going up those first half set of steps. It was so much fun. I love clambering over shit, and then I get to the top, and the transition in my like when my foot touched that top step. Maybe it wasn't even my foot, but like my hand. Like I got ready to go onto that top step, and it was night and day different. It was moving from a place of certainty and confidence in my capacity to absolute total doubt. Like I
oh, no.
and I knew in my mind that I was totally safe up there. I knew the stone wasn't going to come out from under me. I could tell it wasn't going to torque further than I would be able to balance on it. But that intellectual knowledge did not translate into my body, which was busy tightening up every sphincter it owns.
Hopefully many sphincters.
For the listeners who didn't get a chance to explore it, it looks so incredibly sturdy, and you watch people walk over it and you think that it's just going to be easy. And it really isn't. It's like an adrenaline dump at the top. It's like suddenly all of the safety, the things that it gets increasingly harder and more treacherous feeling as you go up, as elevation often does. But then at the top, you have way less to hold on to. And there's just this, I don't know. I work on ladders. It's the adrenaline dump of a ladder slightly tipping while you're up at the top of it.
Yeah.
With a completely different design aesthetic, it embodies the visual danger of Night at the Climb-In. And maybe even more so.
Yeah. That's a great compliment.
But like the architecture of it is so elegant that like you can see how things are held up, and that gives you no confidence in them on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if you fall, you're falling into these cables. Like, they look dangerous on top of just falling.
Yeah, I loved Night at the Climb-In. Like, Dustin is a friend of mine. He was actually the one driving the VR, at least at first, before he rage quit on Catacomb of Veils when we were putting on these panels. So I have a lot of love for him. And I walked up to Night at the Climb-In. Was that 2018, I think? Right?
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Sounds right.
And I was just like, holy shit, this is Burning Man. Like I see a lot of stuff, but I was like, this is art, and this is art of Burning Man to me. And I was like, and I am absolutely not climbing that. There's no way. And then he tricked me into it because he needed some help taking it down, and I came by and helped him out. And then he tricked me into I had to climb up the whole way in the end. But that was a very that was definitely in my mind. So that's a big compliment coming from the comparison.
That was one of my favorite climbs ever at Burning Man. It had so many different interesting angles that you could support yourself and move through.
Benjamin, I was like you. I took one look at that thing covered in DPW people, and I'm like, nah, I'll just be down here. You guys go ahead.
That's exactly what I saw it too. Like the night before it opened, it was like DPW overrun, and I was like, nope, not happening.
Yeah, I went several cars up, but I believe had it not been completely inundated with people, I would have climbed up much higher. But there's just like so many legs in the way while you're trying to like slide into the footwell.
Oh, gosh. Another great moment with 27 Stones. So not only did Rex and I go and climb it at a nice time during the day when no one was around, so we really got to spend some time with it, which was super lovely. Oh. We came back at night with D-Day and a bunch of our friends when we were out doing our long stroll. And it gave me one of the biggest laughs because D-Day was just absolutely refused. And then it was like, I will have a panic attack if you make me go up one more stone. You're going to make me freak out. You had the funniest, most silly reaction to how much you did not want to go further up that thing.
I was panicking on behalf of other people being kind of nervous about the third step.
Yeah, me too. I mean, D-Day, I think I respect you completely, as opposed, I have actually like very little respect for these people who are like, I absolutely don't want to do this. And then like look behind them, see the line of people, and they're freaking out. They're like, I don't want to go any higher. And then their friends are yelling at them for it, and then they still go forward. I'm like, why would you ever do that? You're literally like risking your life and you don't feel it's the right thing to do. Like I was adamant that like, if you doesn't feel right to go up it, you look at it from like 100 feet away. That's totally valid. Like as long as you feel something from it, which is like a clear, like, no, this is not for me. I think it's still totally successful artwork. And I'm really happy that you like feel that,
I've climbed up Half Dome and I've climbed down Half Dome. And when I climbed up Half Dome, there were almost no one else on the cables besides me and my partner. And when I climbed down Half Dome, it was in the middle of the day and hundreds of people were going up and down at the same time. And like, I don't want my ability to balance to depend on how far someone is in front of or behind me. Besides the fact that if I fall off one of those stones, like I am going to clothesline my neck and my limbs several different ways on those cables on the way down. I flail. I've had someone knock a ladder out from under me before. Like, I know how I behave.
Did anyone fall?
Oh, yeah.
No. But the oh shoot, I'm blanking on the name. But the EMT, some guys came by during our strike and very nicely told us that they had absolutely no one come in and blame Stone 27 for their appearance in their little household there. So
fuck nice. Yeah. I love amazing. The idea of them going around the event and like rating how dangerous each of these pieces of art is.
There was like a really strong meme in the first few days of especially during our build. Like everyone that came by would be like, "This is going to be closed by Tuesday," and comparing it to Night at the Climate, which did get closed for a second or whatever.
For a second, for the entire week after someone fell off.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, no. Like, you guys, like that would mean someone got really hurt, and we don't want that to happen, actually. So, and also, I think a few people fell off of that. I forgot what it was called, but it was like the elevated living room, which was super cool. Also the same year as Stone 27.
Yeah, that one was kind of treacherous. There were spaces where you expected a floor to be in. It just wasn't.
And my theory is like, I think Stone 27 was way more dangerous in the activity, but because the living room was so chill, it's like you're chilling, you're just so relaxed once you get into one of those chairs, and you get up and you're not in this like hyper aware adrenaline state, right? Whereas Stone 27 was just so clearly dangerous in terms of like the risk that you're undertaking. I mean, I'm very happy that people respected it enough to not fall off of it. I have bad dreams about someone falling off of something I make, but even more of the people working on it. Like, like one of my crew, like, because we're usually climbing all over it while we're building it.
Stone 27 is like the layout of the last level of a JRPG, where the world has been pulled apart and you're in some liminal space on some stones, and you're not sure if you'll survive getting over to that other stone to get that treasure chest.
Yeah, and I guess the treasure chest is some like space you go in your mind in this case.
Yeah, there's psychedelics there.
Oh yeah, that too. It's now permanently installed in Marin, just north of Point Reyes Station. And I'll be up there in September. I'll definitely invite you guys up there.
Fabulous.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love Point Reyes.
And you're going to be out at the Burn this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm bringing another piece, or at least in theory. The fundraising just got kicked off. I didn't get an honorarium, which is confusing in the way that Burning Man always should be. But is how I'm justifying it to myself. It's another piece where it's going to be another like mind over body situation with a nice dose of challenge of they'll bring you to a moment of presence or intensified consciousness. And the reason it's called Beam, and the reason I'm not saying too much is that the whole crowdfunding is based around the idea that like you could just leave this as a surprise for yourself, which could be really fun. / I wanted people that if they needed that like pornographic desire for information that burners tend to have, like if they really need that, then they got to pay a little bit. There's like a little bit of a play they have to go through to get that. You can see the concept, but you have to go through jump through some hoops. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But I'll give you some clues because I give the clues in the original video too. It's called Beam. It's 150 feet long. So it's pretty long. It's like if you went across a football field. We tried to go like along the football field, but the budget was too insane. So across the football field. And then there's no stones whatsoever. I've done a lot of stuff with stones. I don't know if you guys have seen any of my other work outside of the burns, but a lot of stone works.
No, we don't do research, actually.
Yeah, definitely not. I
assumed
not. Did you? Wow. I just did one at Chatsworth House, actually, with Burning Man in the UK. That was cool, too. Stone 40. There was 88 rocks, so you can figure out how that works. But no stones in this one, and it weighs a total of it's 20,000 something pounds of material. Yeah.
This sounds an awful lot like a balance beam on an incline.
Could be. You're just going to have to go and check it out, and perhaps accidentally contribute on the way. Or
I'm going to run my bike into
guilt trip. Yeah, guilt trip. Yeah. It should be pretty fun. Super minimal as well. Even more so than Stone 27. So this also played into my not giving it away thing, because if I just show you a picture, at first I thought people would be like, "Oh, that's boring," but it turns out I think people are pretty excited about it. So that's good to know.
We'll also push the fundraising link on our social media with no delay.
Yeah, I want to create memories for Beth about me probably not climbing something.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I have to tell you a little secret too, because I know you can keep a secret on a podcast, because it's actually not a secret at all. But I actually have never walked all the way around Stone 27 as its creator. I've gone up either side quite high. Yeah, at Burning Man, I didn't even go that high. I was maybe 4 stones from the top each side at Burning Man. In Marin, up in Point Reyes Station, I went all the way to the top on either side, but never over that top stone. Only to respect this fact that I really never felt like this was the exact moment to do it, and that I would just be pushing myself to do it, especially at Burning Man, where I was finishing the build and totally out of it, and then had to switch to full documentation mode, because as an artist, if you don't do that, then you just know you don't ever get to make anything new. Or if you're a control freak like me, at least, and don't trust anyone else to do it, that's what you have to do.
So you've never been fully up on the top step?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I don't actually like heights so much.
Oh, that's so great.
Look, sometimes you top your art. Sometimes you are topped by your art. It's just how art works.
Yeah. And I have a good crew, and especially one of them, Lily. I sort of, some of the things I make, I sort of think I make them for her. She loves running around all these things. And I'm this is sort of more for you than for me. So enjoy. I get the enjoyment out of the making and knowing that it's the thing that people might need at that moment.
Did you also neither tie nor get tied up in Shibari Sanctuary?
It's funny you asked that, but yeah, I did neither. I don't get tied. I've only been tied a few times, but again, being such a control freak, which is that's my Burning Man costume as well. It's I just go total control freak. So I wouldn't get tied there, but yeah, my teacher asked me to do a performance, and I declined. I was like, no, there's no way. I was, with the process of doing the whole project and everything, the last thing I wanted to add was me as at that point, like not the most experienced rigger, as they would call it, trying to wow, and under the view of all these great Japanese riggers. It was not something I was interested in. I love nothing more than just standing there and no one knows that I'm the artist specific. If I go with my crew, they all everyone points out, it becomes this whole thing, but I love to go and no one knows. And I just listen to what people say. And that to me is invaluable research on what because I have one idea of what the piece is about, of course. And I also have my experience with it, but I have to see how people, it's the R&D for what's next, A different technique with the stones I thought of just after Burning Man, which is not, instead of hanging them, putting them on top of pretty slender pipes, which I call lollipops. Maybe it helps you visualize it.
I'm getting a picture.
Yeah. And there was nice advantages about putting them on these pipes, getting rid of this, also getting rid of anything to hold on to, but getting rid of this sort of clutter that comes from the cables, which is beautiful, but is taking away from the experience with the environment, and being able to create depth So instead of like a line, you can only make a line when you're hanging them, because otherwise the cables will cross over the other stones, and then you have to step over cables. No one wants that. You could imagine you could make a field of these lollipop stones. And so this was stone pathway technology that I developed, and which is what the world needs, obviously.
So what you've created here, and don't take this the wrong way.
No, please. Yeah.
You created a 3D Mario level.
Oh yeah. And very advanced landscaping. Like I've always wanted to be a landscaper of video games, I guess.
I've always wanted to be Mario. Not really.
Oh, wow. We could do a collaboration.
I just really want to stomp some turtles. It's not my proudest urge.
You could grow a very silly Mario mustache. I would not be against that.
I would.
we could put into our crowdfunding like a Mario outfit for you.
Yeah.
Or that's a perk.
If we get this completely funded and then some, we will humiliate my co-host.
Sure. Yep. Exactly.
He's down.
If you're in, I'll make it happen. As you'll see by the crowdfunding video, I'm not above like making a fool out of myself for trying to raise funds.
In the service of art, I'm not above wearing a mustache and a silly pair of overalls.
Perfect. But yeah, for this one at Chatsworth House, I mean, I think this is also the British. It's not a Burning Man audience. It's the British. I don't know, but they just say the word wobble over and over again. It drove me insane. Like, it just drove me so crazy. Like, to be fair, I was a bit sleep deprived. I was like, but I was standing there and I was just like, I hate you all so much. Can you do anything but point out that the fact that the stones wobble? And they weren't saying it to me, but they would get up there and they would get on the first stone that moves. And it is a little bit more surprising, I would say, on these lollipop ones that it does move. But like burners get on something like that, they absorb that it moves, and they're like, oh, cool, it moves. And then they move on with their lives, and then they like see what could happen with this moving structure, how they could interface with it. But these British people are like, oh my God, it's wobbly. It's wobbling. Did you see it's wobbling? Wobble, wobble, wobble. And my brain was just like, I couldn't get this word out of my head.
I just assume it's because a lot of their food is described with adjectives for wobbling and jiggling. Like they have a lot of puddings, they have a lot of jellies.
Yeah, wobbling and jelly. Yeah, I think so. And it's also, there's this huge culture of health and safety, which is so Lodestar is there as well. You remember that airplane that's curved and on its nose by Randy Palumbo? Mm-hmm. And someone came up to me didn't know, they just thought I was a random person standing, not even at Lodestar. I was standing at mine with the stones. Comes up to me and he's like, did you see that there are stairs with that airplane? That's very dangerous. The stairs had a rope going around them that was like, do not enter here. They're just these little like spiral staircase up. I was like, what do you want? You want people to like, you want some world where like everything has like soft padding and like you're physically restrained from like participating in things that could have some slight risk, Yeah, this drive me a bit insane with that project, but
that's so interesting about the danger thing. At Burning Man, it's such an easy part of the culture that everyone is like, is this dangerous? Let's find out.
Yeah.
And with the real understanding that people get really hurt out there, but like, it's very consent about your danger. And like, we just don't get the opportunity to consent to danger a lot, except with it on art. Like, it is usually not
I can't think
an invite.
Of a single museum I've been to outside of the St. Louis City Museum where I was permitted, much less invited, to put my safety at risk.
I think it's such an important part of being a human being, right? Like of course we don't want. To be clear, I have no desire for people to get hurt, especially not seriously. In fact, I would very much public service announcement: do not hurt yourself on any of my art ever, and that would make me very happy. But I think it's very important that we have the opportunity to take risks of our own at our own accord. It's just part of being a human being and growing and making these decisions. And if this is taken away from us, then this is like, you end up in some weird like blob world,
Is there any last things you want to share with our audience or ask, your plugs? Where can they donate? All those things?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, this has been super fun. And I look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Same.
And I gotta plug the artwork that I'm trying to make this year. Go check out our crowdfunding. It's a bit funny. It's not standard. Different. It was decidedly different than all the ones I see for Burning Man, but it's on fundraiser, which is spelled weird.com/beam BM 2022. And the link will be give you guys the link. And find me on Instagram at benjamin.langholz.
And how do you spell your last name for those of us that are bad at spelling?
Yeah, it's BENJAMIN.LANGHOLZ. And you can also find me through Google that way too.
Yeah. Also, if you forget Benjamin's full name, you can also look up 27 Stones and you'll be able to find
it'll
his names.
backtrack towards it. Yeah. Stone 27.
Stone 27
is the... Yeah. And I hope to see everyone out there in the dirt with a nice new sculpture. Very exciting.
Yay, go give money.
Excited. Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was Benjamin.
Wasn't that a great story, guys?
Holy shit. Can you imagine being that type A enough to do this kind of art?
Yes.
Can you imagine being so driven to create monumental art that you make this incredible piece that people are going to be talking about for years, and then you don't climb it?
Yes.
You just never go up and over. It's wild.
I love it. It's such like a performance art kind of idea. Like, it's understanding the art as the experience and then just being like, nope, not going to do that. That's part of the...
I am not my audience.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Do I ever understand I am not my audience in a number of different quarters?
I've never considered the fact that I might have an audience.
Oh.
Well, you let me get you up on stage, Zeno. You will have an audience.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I get that, but I've never actually considered the audience and who they were or why.
But have you considered your not being amongst them?
Yeah, I want to be away
He's
from them.
very aware that he's not in his audience.
It's like J.R. Bob Dobbs says, I don't practice what I preach because I'm not like the assholes I preach to.
Also originated in Texas.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Perhaps the greatest thing Texas ever gave us.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for coming on this podcast and talking to us like a real artist and shit. That's wonderful.
The music in this episode is electro.
Is that a name, a band, a
It is
person?
a type of music.
Electro.
Yeah.
Do the things that you're supposed to do, like us and subscribe to us on
Yeah.
all your platforms.
Don't do it.
Follow us on social media.
And come
Unsubscribe
on
right
this goddamn podcast. Come
Also-
visit us at our studio in Oakland or do a call-in. Either way, hit us up, accuracythird@gmail.com. That's where you find us.
Hey, you. Do you feel like you don't have anything to say to us and you just like us? Come be on our podcast. This is all of our interviews.
We do have amazing stories.
Yeah.
You just don't know it.
You don't know it. Come talk to us. You don't even have to have a plan. You can sit down with us. We can chat with you.
We will ply you full of substances. We'll get you nice and loose.
You can come in locally in Oakland, California, or you can call in the way that adults do now. Not an open invitation, but if you're super cool, we'll interview you on Playa.
Not this year. Not anymore.
No, we're done with
we
that.
are booked.
We're pretty booked.
But next year, if you want to wait a year, don't fucking wait a year. Just give us a call. If your interview is good enough, we'll also talk to you on Playa.
And what you can do on Playa for sure is come and see us at our party, listener appreciation style, Wednesday, 2 p.m. in Center Camp at the place where all the people are getting together to talk to us, I guess. And also the Reddit Burning Man get together is there. So there's that. You can meet Redditors.
We will have
Won't that
stickers
be exciting?
and we will have patches, but we will not have glow-in-the-dark vinyl patches because those are like $750 for 200 of them.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Oh, I was so fucking excited when I was looking at patches, but then that quote came in.
You can also interview yourself and just make an MP3 and just, I don't know.
It's very fair. If you have enough charisma to just talk into a mic for an hour and feel like you can just send that to us, you're probably a sociopath, but you might be a good one.
Hey.
So go ahead and send it to us.
Hey, you that thinks that that's a good idea.
Hey, you.
Before you record yourself, think to yourself, ask yourself one question. When you go camping, when you are sitting in a circle in a backyard, when you are at some sort of a picnic or around a burn barrel, Do you have that story that like you are so itching to tell that you interrupt somebody so that you can tell your 5?
I actually do have one of these that I would love to
story?
tell you right now.
See? Give me 3 minutes. You are the person who
Jesus, you're
can
gonna do
and
this for 3
should
minutes?
sit.
I know.
Yes, because of shit like this. You are the person who should sit in front of your microphone, which is slightly more expensive than you think it should be, but is better than the microphone that you have in your shitty corded headset or in your phone, and you record us that goddamn story and you send it to us, and we will have an episode or 2 or 3 of a whole bunch of stories that y'all send in. So y'all send in those stories.
How was the experience of Africa Burn compared to the Big Burn?
Oh yeah, I love Africa Burn. I've been twice, and I made 2 artworks there, so both times. The quickest way to summarize it is it's like, in terms of making something, is the focus is like way further on the communal effort and way less on the self-reliance. So like I actually thought they were messing with me, because they were like, oh yeah, you could just go out there and you could like borrow a generator and some like sledgehammers from people. And I was like, what do you mean? Like if I went to Burning Man and I was like, oh yeah, I don't have a generator to run my tool, like people look at obviously if you have, but people look at you like you're a complete asshole, and Africa Burn, I guess because it has a limited, a lot less funds going into it. People really just help each other out. Like the founder, one of the co-founder of Africa Burn, Monique, let me stay at her house and have like my full crew there, and like gave me her car and like her coolers and jugs to carry around diesel in, and it's just like, here, everything, go, so you can make art, like go do it, because they don't have the money, so they help with in every other way.
That's so rad. How big is it?
Yeah, it's super cool. It's 10,000, so now it's the second biggest. Midburn, which is the Israeli one, used to outnumber it. And I think by far, I've been to, let's see, I did a little rampage after I felt like I failed, as a real, masculine man should, right? Like if you fail at something, you should do it as much as possible in as many places as possible to prove to yourself that you can do it. And so I went to Midburn twice, and I went to Africa Burn, and I went to Burning Japan and Borderlands, which is the one in Denmark, and Nowhere, which is the one in Spain. And
oh, wow. You've really done the tour.
Even though I've only been to, I think it's like 6 Burning Mans, I've been to 19 burns. Wow. Or burn adjacent events. Yeah. And built artwork at Midburn, or like honorarium artwork at Midburn and Africa Burn twice. So Africa Burn is like, it is my favorite. I'm a little too close to it to be objective, but I think it's a really beautiful scaling down. They have a proper desert, and they just bought the land, which is super cool.
Oh, nice.
So they have their own land now. And, and they have a great art culture. It's nothing's like quite as big, but it has a totally different aesthetic. Really, really like earthy and fun, and they burn way more stuff, way more burns at Africa Burn than at Burning Man, which is great.
You just burn all the art.
Everything. I think it's like it's a little more alcohol focused, probably. There's definitely like the crew of Europeans that all descend for the weekend to like get the music festival vibe going or whatever.
Oh, so it is very much like Burning Man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Except it's zoomp instead of unz.
They let some real questionable shit happen that I don't think would fly. So because it's still like small enough where the guy who's like exploding the anvil at 4 a.m. Like you're like sure who it is because there's only the one guy who does it. Whatever. He also might be shooting his flamethrower bazooka at the like flaming target. It's like he's the only one who's going to do it. There's no one else who's going to do it, so it's not a big problem.
So the kind of questionable shit that happens like before the gates open and
exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Some real DPW shit.
It's what you can do when you've got less people there.
Totally. Yeah, I would completely recommend it. I think Africa Burn is a great. If you've never stepped out of the States for a burn, that's a great one to go to. Everyone's like incredibly welcoming and friendly. And
you just let us know how we can go with you and take the kindness of your friends in contact so that we don't have to pay out the nose for it.
Oh yeah, but it's also way cheaper. All the other burns are like insanely cheaper. Other than the flights to get there.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't pay for
That's
tickets.
the barrier.
yeah. Nothing even comes close
Yeah.
to Burning Man.
I mean, where could you be as remote as Gerlach? Outside of Australia. They've got some remote shit in Australia, but they can't even get to the remote shit.
Isn't nowhere pretty far out from civilization?
No, it's like, in fact, I mean, I liked Nowhere. I only went once. It's like, it's a much more like sexual focused burn. I'd say it's like a lot of workshops
In
and a lot of like sex positivity. Yeah. Well, it's organized by the Brits, like the London crew.
Okay, yeah, that's
And,
surprising.
Yeah, it is, and it is in a little proper desert, which is super cute. But the camp I was with, I could not believe that their strategy for like the kitchen was that they would drive back and forth to the town to pick up food. And they were like, yeah, it's just like there's a, then you can go swimming at like at the pool, like, and I was like, I don't want to go to swimming at the pool. This is a burn. I'm like here at the burn.
Yeah, I'm in it.
Bringing our food and cooking it, like, yeah, exactly.
It's like Burning Man day camp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there a lot of them are like that way, but Africa Burn is pretty far out. It's it's 3 hours from Cape Town, but it feels still pretty remote out there. And it's an hour from the closest town, assuming you don't pop a tire somewhere along the road.
What's Japan Burn like?
Burning Japan, when I went, I haven't. That was a long time ago, but it was 300 people. It was on like a BMX, like a little BMX bike course,
Nice.
So it was like this weird, like that was where they found to do it. And the fun, like the people who organized it were so serious about it. Like they had a really proper tiny little temple and a really proper tiny little effigy, and they really it was so nice. And I met, again, it's like a bit of a clash of culture with like Japanese culture in terms of like being really like super, I don't know, open and friendly with everyone who comes your way or whatever. But they know how to have a nice little party. And I met all the best expats who were living in Tokyo. And so that was really fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you wander through the playa would be over these like weird little like ramps, and it would be like 15 minutes and you'd done the whole thing, but still like, seduce yourself into the feeling for sure.
Don't they like disembowel you in Japan if you're caught with psychedelics though? Like, aren't they?
Oh yeah. It's very, very serious. I don't know but I know it's like 3 months in jail for possession of marijuana. At least last time I was there. That's what they.
Well, I mean, that's more civilized than almost half the country.
They don't disembowel you. You disembowel yourself.
Thanks. You're right.
Oh yeah.